What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Saturday afternoon. I am not super stressed out anymore. Utah gave me a scare today, but it is what it is. I appreciate the scare because it means football is back. I'm excited to get to this Chargers game, which is less than 24 hours away at this point. So thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoy today's show, and joining me as always is my guy Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing?
Week 1 football is back. And yes, it's tomorrow, but it's back. Thank goodness. I'm so happy. Everybody has their college football. I'm a USC fan, sort of. I'm an Ohio State fan, sort of, because of my family. But I only have the NFL, and I only have the Chargers. And yes, they let me down every year, but at least it's back. That letdown, whatever happens, it's back. I'm excited. I'm just excited to go, man. And listen, I'm so excited that I've never had this happen before. I've had night before, like dreams, nightmares, whatever about the game, where I can't sleep because I'm so excited. That whole Christmas Eve sort of feeling. I've never had the night before, unable to sleep. Things happen before. Like I could not sleep yesterday. It was terrible. But again, I'm excited, and adrenaline is just going to fuel me through the rest of the week. And if they win, that'll get me through the week as well. Yeah, I'm ready. Bring me the football games. Let's do this.
Yeah, normally you get the weekend to catch up on some sleep and rest a little bit, especially as educators. But not for the first weekend of football. So I'm super excited, man. This is I wouldn't say as excited as I've ever been for the season to start. That was last year. Honestly, I was probably the most excited I've been heading into week 1. So hopefully this year turns out better than last year. So today we're gonna finish up our coverage of week 1. We'll do some injury report roundup for both sides. We'll have some bold predictions today. We'll make our picks. This year for our weekly pick segment, we are still including Alex Katzen, and Arjun. So the 5 members of the Guilty as Charged squad are getting together, making our weekly picks. At the end of the season, the losers will pay for a jersey of choice for the winner, as we have every single year. So it should be a lot of fun. And then we'll, of course, predict our final scores for the Chargers game itself. And then after that, we will take some questions. So it should be fun. If you have a question at this time, please save it until the end. We'll have some stuff to get to first. Super chats always appreciated at that point. All right, Tyler, the biggest thing we have to talk about really is the news that Teron Armstead is officially out of this game. Armstead, in my opinion, is one of the 5 best left tackles in the league when he's healthy. Problem is that he's never really healthy. He does this thing every single year where he misses like 4 or 5 games. This week, he's dealing with a back and an ankle and a hip issues. So he's not playing, which means Kendall Lamb is officially expected to start at left tackle. So it's a little bit of a different thing, right? Because Tua's a lefty, but it's still going from Teron Armstead, who's one of the best in the business, to a backup is a pretty significant drop off. What are your thoughts as we kind of now know that Armstead is officially out, Tyler?
My thoughts are, yay! I wish nothing but good health for everyone in the league, but sometimes when the Chargers are playing them, if they want to take that week off, I completely understand. Look, man, Austin Gale, I almost said PFF's Austin Gale, but he's no longer there. He pointed out that...
So he's with the Ringer now, right?
Sure, I don't know. I just know he's not PFF anymore.
Okay.
He pointed out that Tua's EPA per dropback with Armstead was 0.25. Without him, granted only 74 dropbacks, is negative 0.32. And just for fun, I had to go look at, comparing EPA. What does that look like? What does negative 0.32 look like compared to NFL quarterbacks last season? Now, I can't measure exact 74 dropbacks versus another person's 74 dropbacks. But if you just looked at the 2022 season, where does negative 0.32 EPA rank in EPA per play? It would be 60th out of 63 quarterbacks last year, ahead of only Trace McSorley, Kyle Allen, Malik Willis, and Nick Foles, and behind Trey Lance, Sam Ellinger, and Brett Ripien. So, not great.
Big deal.
And I get it. He had to face the 49ers in that game. It wasn't great. Well, you got another Bosa and a Mack and a Thule and a Fox, and your tackle is now the literal sacrificial lamb. that's out there. Honestly, I would have picked the Chargers to win anyway. But this, I don't want to say cements it, but it feels like it kind of cements it because we felt this way, and even Sean, who picked the Dolphins to win this game, has said this much. It might not matter what the game plan is because they should not have the offensive line to keep up with the Chargers. And I don't see that happening. I'm sure there will be some quick passes, some great run scheme, whatever. But at the end of the day, especially if the Chargers offense can keep them, forcing them to score, like this game almost feels over. And he's that important to them, honestly.
Yeah, he is that important. Some of those on-off splits, as some Dolphins fans have pointed out, Greg Little was their backup left tackle last year. I don't think he's even in the league right now. So the drop-off last year was probably more significant than it is this year. Kendall Lamb, I don't think is going to be that bad, but like you just laid out, it's still a significant loss, just regardless of who it is playing at left tackle. They could have the best swing tackle in the league. It's still a drop-off. Teron Armstead is that good, that important to them. I'd also be curious about their rushing EPA splits with and without Teron Armstead. That to me is going to be the key for the Dolphins. Like if you're Mike McDaniel, like I'm kind of going to have a run-heavy approach this week if I'm Mike McDaniel, and try and keep this Chargers pass rush at bay. So how do you combat that? You have to get the Dolphins into third and long situations, which last year they did a really good job of. You have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to let Joey and Khalil and all those guys that you mentioned be able to get after him. And we know that Brandon Staley's best attribute is his ability to design up blitzes to confuse the opposing offensive lines and heat up the quarterback that way. So it's a huge swing for the Chargers. Like you mentioned, I probably was going to pick the Chargers in this game regardless. But Teron Armstead not being there, Jalen Ramsey not being there, there's really no excuses for the Chargers not to win this game at this point. We just saw a game on Thursday where a team didn't have their best two games, their best two players, and they weren't able to get it done. This week against the Chargers, the Dolphins are going to play without at least two of their best four players, depending on how you feel about Jalen Ramsey still at this point. So it's a huge deal. And, it's one that probably hasn't been talked about enough this week is what this means for Khalil Mack in particular, because he's the one that's usually lining up against the left tackle. He should have a big day, big impact tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, he should. So in terms of rush EPA, I think the Dolphins off the top of my head were like middle of the pack. I think they were one below the Chargers on the whole season. Just in that one particular game against the 49ers. I don't know about the other 20-something dropbacks. They were 23rd in rush EPA. So not like terrible, not as bad as I thought it would be, but obviously not great. So yeah, man. Khalil Mack, we saw him week 1 last year. Granted, I think there's a little bit of extra motivation when you're playing the Raiders and Derek Carr. But what do you have? 3 sacks last year, and honestly, one of the best defensive performances I can remember from an edge rusher.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, there really are no excuses here. I think the offense, I see your predictions, people on Twitter. I see you having the Chargers scoring 34 or 38. I don't see that. And I don't think like Jalen Ramsey being absent like changes it that much. But on the defensive side of the ball, there really isn't an excuse for them to not, I would say, slow the Dolphins down enough. Like, I get it if they score 20. There's a lot of talent. And as we saw in that game, Tyreek Hill, one play changes the whole thing. Like, there's a score. But, I did my prize picks today, and I was going through and trying to figure out overs or unders or more. Yeah, shout out. Thank you, Prize Picks. Get $100 with the code GUILTY at Prize Picks. I was doing my more or less, which is how they have you bet. And I was just finding every Tua under I could find because like, I just don't see how they get things going outside of a couple of fluke plays, which is what happened last year. I just don't see how the Dolphins have enough of their offensive line to get things going. It feels very like the way I feel about the Chargers when they had a bad offensive line and Anthony Lynn when they had to go play the Patriots. And it was just like, Belichick's like, you can't stop us. There's nothing you can do. And also, thank you, Mom, for the super chat there. Appreciate that. First game, let's go. My mom, my dad, and I will be at the game. yeah, it just should be a bloodbath. There's no excuse, respectfully. And I get it. It's offensive driven league. Mike McDaniel is, I think, a good coordinator, and they have good weapons. So things can happen. But overall, like, we shouldn't see more than 21, 24 maybe in this game. They should really, really be able to put a ceiling on this offense.
Yeah, and this is partially because of Armstead, but the Chargers defensive line is going to have its 6 main guys on the field together really for the first time. Like, at this time last year, you were still doing the Jerry Tillery thing. Obviously Kilimak and Joey Bosa were out there. There wasn't really a third edge rusher like we talked about all offseason, right? This year you have your core 6 defensive linemen, your 3 edge rushers with Thule, and then you have Morgan Fox, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Austin Johnson, who is, again, something we need to talk about. He's at full speed, according to Brandon Staley. So this is really your main 6 for the first time that we're going to see under Brandon Staley. So this is a game that the Chargers defensive line should dominate. Like, absolutely, there are some things that Mike McDaniel can do schematically to ease some pressure, but this is a subpar group, even with Teron Armstead up front for the Dolphins. Like, I just don't have any kind of faith, if I'm a Dolphins fan, in this unit holding up for the course of a whole season. Like, that's the reason why I think people are doubting the Dolphins. When you're talking about like the way that the AFC stacks up, you look at the Dolphins defense, you look at the skill players, you look at the coach. Depending how you feel about the quarterback, I think he's good enough that you can win with him. But everybody always talks about that offensive line, and now you're playing without Teron Armstead. So this is a huge deal. The Chargers defensive line has to start the season hot, and now they have a huge advantage without Armstead out there.
Yeah, should be a bloodbath. I like he pointed out with the whole Tillery thing. I forgot about that last year.
I apologize for the PTSD for everybody.
Some people are really not happy with him saying that, by the way. But it's gone. It's over. We're past that.
You can't hurt us anymore, guys. I promise.
Well, maybe when they play the Raiders. But yeah, no. I doubt the offensive line more than I do Tua, to be completely honest. Assuming Tua is healthy. Like, we've seen it. We're Chargers fans. We've seen it. In 2020, there was so much we made about Herbert versus Tua, but both lines sucked. Yeah, both lines were terrible or hurt that year, or just both. And this line isn't that great. Now, I was surprised that their pass blocking efficiency as a unit last year was like, I think it was 18th. I think it was slightly worse than the Chargers was last year, but that was with Armstead for 16 games or 15 and a half games, whatever it was. Yeah. You're not going to have him this game. And everyone's in the best shape of their life. I think Morgan Fox is primed for the best career year for himself. In theory, this is the best linebacker group that I think they've had in terms of 1-2. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But they got Eric Kendricks, and they clearly feel that he is the upgrade over what was Kaiser White and then Drew Tranquill. So your secondary's there. I get that maybe you didn't have the safety you always wanted, but maybe it's the one you needed. But in theory, Michael Davis is healthy. Zont is healthy. JC Jackson is I think ready to go. We'll see. That's such a storyline. We talked about this, but it's everything you wanted. Like, and to his stats versus Brandon Staley, granted, Dolphins fans have pointed out to me the first game was obviously his first start ever, and again it was against Aaron Donald, and that doesn't go well. But like, to his stats, where are the 2 games that he's played? I have it somewhere. I think he averages like 115 yards.
Against Staley,
against Brandon Staley, excuse me. 115 something yards. I forget. I put it somewhere. Here it is. 11 completions per game, 119 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, and the EPA per play plus CPOE composite ranking that was worse than the NFL both weeks. So that's what we're in for. Yeah. Brandon Staley has his number, has everyone he wants on defense, and they don't have Armstead. I know we've talked about this for a while, but like, again, I can't emphasize enough how much the defense should just beat the brass out of the offense this week.
Yeah, as ETA 44A points out, the Chargers in this game last year, like, we've talked a bit about this online, but like, people love to point out who wasn't playing for the Dolphins. Well, if you look at the game last year, there was no Slater, no Trey Pipkins. You obviously did not have Sebastian Joseph, which he pointed out. Austin Johnson was not playing in this game. Christian Covington was not playing in this game. You know, you were dealing with a defensive line. Derwin wasn't playing
Joey
in that
Bosa,
game.
Bryce Callahan.
The list was huge, right? Like
Yeah.
we were so pessimistic about that game heading into the into the matchup because we were like, the Chargers are decimated by injury right now. Now this week, everybody for the most part is healthy. We'll talk about Chris Rumph for a little bit, but you know, you have your core 6 defensive linemen, you have your 2 linebackers healthy, everybody in the secondary is healthy, your offensive line is healthy. The Chargers have a significant health advantage this week on top of everything else, which I think is a big deal too. So, regards to the Chargers, you mentioned J.C. Jackson. We'll see what happens. Brandon Staley seemed to indicate that we'll still see Jasir Taylor out there. I would imagine there's some kind of rotation amongst the 4 corners. And so, you know, it seemed like he sounded much more confident that Austin Johnson would be full speed than J.C. Jackson. It seems like they kind of want to take it a little bit easier with JC, but we'll see what happens there. Doesn't appear that Chris Rumph or Deion Henley will be playing this week. So the Chargers did activate Brevin Allen. I don't think Brevin Allen or Andrew Farmer were really going to play that much, if at all. So I don't know how much of a big deal that is, but what are your thoughts there with no Rumph and no Deion Henley?
I don't know if Henley would have played a defensive snap, to be completely honest, because of, you know, could have been Amon, could have been Nick. It's certainly the other 2 linebackers.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't say it's no difference because there's special teams involved, but I think with Tanner Muse, I think in terms of special teams, it's probably a wash.
Yeah.
Rumph being out is a bummer because this was like the breakout year. You know, he looked good in the preseason as he has before. So maybe he's trending towards having a really, really good season. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's more powerful. He's stringing pass rush moves together, and he's out. So that's a bummer. The good news is it wasn't like he did not practice from the jump, although he did get injured that first day of practice. But there's no like immediately out. It felt like he was like getting game time decision maybe. So I don't think this is a long-term thing. Brevin Allen being elevated was a bit of a surprise. All I could honestly think of, outside of the fact that we don't get access to all the practices, all the camp, you know, whatnot, the film room, you name it. That's a whole different thing. I don't know that. But the only thing I can think of is that he's 15 pounds heavier and he's got arms that are 2 inches longer. And that's their prototype. The Chargers lean into prototype for better or worse. They're going to find the guy who's the prototype at the position. Again, if you thought Chargers wanted Zay Flowers and he was the better guy, well, they went to Quentin Johnson. Why? Prototypes. And you know, I think he was a good player anyway, but still they lean into their prototypes, and that's certainly no different on defense. So bit of a surprise there, but again, does it make a huge difference? I don't know. Although I feel like if Chris Rumph were playing, he'd play a lot more snaps and maybe even be the 3rd guy. Who knows? With now Brevin Allen being the 4th guy there, I think you're kind of forced now to play a bit more of Mack and Bosa than maybe you wanted, because I can't imagine you trust Brevin Allen to go out there as much as Chris Rumph at this point.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely some special teams impact from them, but not expecting Brevin Allen to play a whole lot on defense. You know, the Deion Henley thing, it sounded like a little more serious, according to Brandon Staley, than I think we all would have liked to see. And it's unfortunate. Like, I think he was really good in the preseason. I think he had some really nice flashes. I think the fan base was significantly higher on Deion than the Chargers were, and I think that kind of bared out with the way that the snaps were being distributed between the rest of the linebackers without Kenneth Murray and Eric Kendricks playing in the preseason. So would have loved to see Deion get a bigger chance, obviously, but they seem to trust, at particular Amon, I think, has that trust as linebacker 3. And Nick Niemann was pretty clearly ahead of him as well. So not too sure that matters a whole lot, but special teams will definitely be tested with those guys coming in.
Yeah, I'm curious how long Henley's going to be out for. 1, because it's a hamstring and God knows how long that could last for. And 2, like what was it? He got hurt in the game, and 2 days later they signed Muse? Pretty close. After that game, they signed Muse, which isn't really a good sign. Like Chris Rumph, it was much shorter time frame, but no replacement for him so far. Like no other guy that was signed. So yeah, we'll see with Henley, but hopefully it's not too serious.
Yeah, and I mean, if it were super serious, I think he'd be on IR. Like they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, like
want
Cooper
that.
Kupp.
Yeah, yeah, like Cooper Cup. Yeah.
So
Okay.
unhappy.
Sorry, man. It's a brutal spot to be in as a fantasy football owner, but hope Cooper is
Yeah.
recovering well. I saw that there was like some nerve issue potential there, so hopefully he's okay. All right, let's get to our bold predictions here. I'll start us off. My bold prediction after thinking about it, I'm going with Joshua Kelly leading the team in rushing tomorrow. I think this comes down to a couple big plays from Joshua. I think he's had a great preseason and a really solid training camp. And I think the change of pace between him and Austin Eckler, I think, is really going to pay off this week. I think Austin Eckler has a decent day. I don't think we'll see him be super explosive or efficient. But I do think Joshua Kelly pops off a couple big runs and leads the team in rushing tomorrow.
Great call. I was looking for Joshua Kelly anything in terms of stats on Prize Picks. Again, shout out Prize Picks. I was looking for like the 15 rushing yards they would have projected for him or something. They don't go that deep with some of these players. You can't just bet on Donald Parham over under 4 yards. So they didn't have Joshua Kelly. But I agree. Like Joshua Kelly, he would be in a position to. So you said lead the team in rushing yards, right?
Yes, lead the team in rushing yards.
Any stat projection, maybe?
I'll say 70 yards.
Okay. All right. As long as we get 70 and 50, not 70 and 25 or something. That'd be great. But yeah, no, that's solid. I like that. My bold prediction, I don't have a stat for this because I don't really know what this entails, but I think my bold prediction, again, this is a bold prediction, which means it doesn't matter. So I get to say it. I think the defensive player we're talking about after the game tomorrow is Kenneth Murray. I think that's in a good way. I think that is a player that we talk about. I don't know if he's maybe the best player on the field tomorrow because I think it's just going to be Joey Bosa, probably outright. But I think Kenneth Murray is the player that we're like, whoa, where did that come from? So that's my bold prediction. What is the stat line? I don't know. Maybe he leads the team in tackles. I'll say that. But, tackles are tackles. Yeah. But I think that with the way that they'll use him as a blitzer, and they'll love to, like, because of that offensive line, I think that he will be the player that we talk about positively, maybe to even open the show. But that's, again, a bold prediction.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, let's get to our score predictions here. Oh, we got some Dolphin fans in the chat. Welcome, I guess. All right, so let's we have our Google Sheet, so we'll go over some of our weekly NFL picks, and then we'll get to our predictions. So if you guys have a question for us, feel free to start typing those. Again, super chats are greatly appreciated. Okay, so let's start with Arjun's picks. Arjun, as his favorite of the week, has the Washington Commanders. His underdog of the week is the Las Vegas Raiders. Either or, meaning basically any team. He has the Seattle Seahawks over the Los Angeles Rams. For the Chargers score, he has 30-24. So I'm pretty sure that he has the highest score output of the week. So he's pretty confident in the Chargers offense this week. If you missed his Chargers analytics episode, please go check that out. Alex Katzen has his favorite of the week as the Cincinnati Bengals, the underdog of the week as the Tennessee Titans. And then he also has the Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets. He also has the Chargers winning 27-20, so a little bit higher scoring there too. And then Alex Insdorf, of course, in true Alex fashion, is picking the Eagles as his favorite of the week. The Packers as the underdog. I thought about taking them as well. The Jaguars as either or, and then the Chargers winning 26-23. Again, he did both breakdowns yesterday, so go check that out after this as well. Tyler, walk us through your picks, and then feel free to do your Charger score.
I'll start by saying that I'm surprised by Arjun's score of 30. That was a bit of a surprise to me, given how I feel. Yeah. And then just Arjun, I don't want to say he's more conservative, but I wouldn't imagine the analytics would point towards 30 being the output here. That's quite a lot of belief in this offense, unless we're assuming the defense plays so well, I guess, that there's some turnovers for field goals. For me, the favorite was Baltimore over Houston. I just think that they're a better team, and Houston, is kind of a wait and see, but who knows? Jets over Buffalo as the underdog. I tried to pick something a little bit different than what was already out there. So Jets over Buffalo, I think, is fine. And I think that Jets defense is good enough to keep them in the game.
Jets at home. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then Seahawks over Rams, which felt like a pretty good pick anyway. And then now Cooper Kupp is officially out and on IR. So like that, I think almost makes them that I could have just picked them as the favorite outright. But, the Rams, we've seen the AFC West beat up their, granted, not all their starters or none of their starters. I think the AFC West beat them like 125-32 or something. Like it was not pretty. So there's that. As far as the score goes, I'm going to have the Chargers winning. I don't know if you call this close because I feel like the score won't indicate how much better the Chargers were. But I'm worried about the offense. I have no real expectations for them. For me, it's just how they finished the season. So I'll go 24-20. I believe the over-under was set at 51 last time I checked. I believe the Chargers and Dolphins only combined for 40 last year. I don't think they're hitting 51, so I'm taking the under regardless. And I just think that with the offense being a bit slow to start, I think, and with the Dolphins, like we talked about, not really being able to get anything going, I think it's a lower-ish scoring game. But we feel good about the defense. We feel good enough about the offense. 24-20 Chargers. I guess I should put W.
Yeah, you're good. I will say the other three did make their predictions before the news that Teron Armstead was officially out. I don't know if that changed things or not, but just, of course, had to throw it out there. Okay, so for me, a favorite of the week, I'm going Vikings over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kind of wanted just to do something different here. I don't super trust the Vikings on the season as a whole, but I definitely trust them to get a win over Baker Mayfield. Steelers over 49ers is my underdog of the week. I think it's a home game for the Steelers, and I've been very high on the Steelers all year long. So I think they start off with a really hot start. Cowboys over Giants, same thing. Very high on the Cowboys, not high on the Giants, so that one was easy for me. In terms of the Charger score, I am going to go a little bit lower scoring as well. I think both of these teams are probably going to try and have a more run-heavy approach. Chargers to try and keep the Dolphins' offense at bay. The Dolphins because they won't trust their offensive line to pass protect. So I think we'll see a relatively quick game. I think we'll see some big plays here and there, but I think it's going to be kind of a grounded out game for both teams. I think both defenses really show up strong. Really, this just comes down to that fact of which quarterback is going to be under the more pressure from the other defense, and I think that is going to be obviously Tua. So for me, I'm going to go a similar-ish score to you. I'm going to have a win, and I'm going to have 26-20. So I'm a little higher scoring than you, but I'm not super different there. I think we're kind of aligned with how we think in that regard.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think after we see the game, we'll adjust, accordingly for every game moving forward. If they score 35, all my predictions after that are very different. But until then, 24 is solid. And again, the over-under is at 51. No one's expecting, like Arjun has them at 54 total. I don't really know if they're going to get there. So yeah, I think both of us taking the under, Alex on the under, other Alex on the under. I think that's where they're leaning. So again, which makes me so interested in why Arjun went with the over on that one.
Yeah. I think he's just, I think the passing attack starts a little slow with these two defenses that they have on tap with the Dolphins and the Titans. And, I think the Dolphins defense will pan out to be one of the top 10 defenses. I think same thing for the Titans. So really week 3 is where I would expect kind of a big Justin Herbert explosive game against the Raiders and then the Vikings, and then moving forward after that. So should be a lot of fun. I think this is a great coaching matchup. I think this is a really fun defensive matchup. Quarterback storylines is kind of overplayed, but
100%.
Two good quarterbacks for sure. It's just there's a lot of great storylines in here. And I'm excited to get to this point tomorrow.
Yeah, I see the, we're conservative with unveiling the Kellen Moore era. I totally get that, but it's an unveiling. It's not we're retooling. We've gone all in and we're 3 years into the system. And for what it's worth, because I'm weird and I know this, the opening day EPA per play for the Cowboys last season on offense was 32nd. So I'm not saying every start to the year is good. It was like 3rd, 22nd, and then 10th. But in that 4th year, it was 32nd. I don't know who they played, but not every opening week is a good week for Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I don't think it's conservative. I would say this is just respectful of who the Dolphins have on defense and what the Chargers are trying to accomplish this year. Like, there's been so much emphasis on the run game. I think they're really going to try and start strong in that regard. And I think it's just going to be a run heavy approach from both sides. And I think both defenses have good days. And like, if you really look at the Dolphins depth chart, like, they have dudes all over the place. Like, this is a squad that could have 4 or 5 Pro Bowlers on the defense. And, you have, the guy that is leading the defensive meta in the NFL right now. So this is just, it's more respectful of the Dolphins defense than it is being low on Kellen Moore or Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and we as a fan base can't beg for Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator of this year all offseason until they didn't do that. And then suddenly, now that it's time to face Vic Fangio, it's like, 35 points because they stink. Like, no, we gotta continue to respect it. Now, granted, like you've talked about, the Dolphins Fangio's defense takes a bit to get going throughout the first season.
Yeah,
but he's got a lot of guys, and again, I'm like, all the Dolphins fans in here. Jalen Phillips loved him. Wilkins loved him. Like, all these guys, there's a lot of good players on this defense. So I respect the defense even without Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, this defensive line is really, really good. I think Bradley Chubbs is going to get clamped by Rashawn Slater, but it's a really good defensive line. It really is. So I think the Dolphins defense has a good season, but we'll see. All right, let's take some questions now. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Have a pretty lively chat. Of course, some of that being some friendly banter in the chat. So Finn's take with C883 or CB83. Appreciate the interaction, I guess.
Yeah, it's nice in here. It's not Raiders week yet. I remember, I think it was last year, just every live stream.
Yeah, Raiders.
And then they beat him that first game, and it was just like a symphony of crickets. It was nice.
Yeah. All right, trying to scroll up, so we'll see if there's any questions that I missed earlier. But like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit us up. I like this one. Unicorn Slapper. Bold prediction. He says Herbert 30+ rushing yards.
Unicorn Slapper.
And a rushing TD. I think Kellen lets him move. I do think we'll see Herbert run more this year than we have in the past. 30+ rushing yards. What do you think there, Tyler?
I'm going to double check, but I'm pretty sure I bet the over on Prize Picks. Again, shout out Prize Pick. Use the code GUILTY for $100 free deposit or match deposit or whatever. I don't know. Steven knows what it is. Let me find it. Yeah, so Justin Herbert, I bet on the line is at 8.5 rushing yards. So I definitely have him over 8.5 rushing yards. Yeah. So 30 sounds good. As long as it's 9, I'm cool with that. Yeah. But the way they've been using him, the way he's got just a couple chances per game. And, again, I think the Dolphins defensive line will force him to move. So, yeah, I could see 30, I don't know. But I could see him like a couple of 5-6 yard scrambles. Again, whatever gets me over 8.5.
Yeah. Jorge wants to know, how do you think JC Jackson fares? I think this is one of the more interesting storylines of the game. We've seen some good moments at practice. It hasn't been like last training camp when he was arguably the best player at training camp. Yeah. I think we see them be a little conservative with JC. I think we see them kind of ease him into the game plan. You will see Jasir Taylor take some snaps at the slot. Asante will play some snaps on the outside. So I think there's going to be a pretty decent rotation, obviously with Michael Davis being like the main guy who's always out there. So I would love to see JC have a good game, but I think they're going to be cautious with him. I think Michael Davis and Asante will kind of take the bulk of the snaps against the two receivers. So I think we'll see JC have a have a bit of a slow start, but not in a bad way, just more of like a let's not rush him back into things way.
Yeah, I could honestly see a world where he plays 10 snaps and they're like, he can't move like we were hoping, or he's hurting, or he's more sore than he should be, or whatever, and they just pull him because they feel like they can with Zont, with Jaw Taylor. So how does he fare? I don't even know, because we talked to Ted and Wynn, and he said he went back and watched, JC in New England versus JC with the Chargers post surgery, and like he was not able to sit and move and sink into his heels and everything, move his hips, etc. Because of the surgery. So I don't know if he can move yes, they'll put him out there, of course. And he says, yeah, I'm good to go. But again, like Ted said, that it wasn't the same. Now, does that change because of everything that's happened, the year off? I don't know. But like, I really don't know. So I think he'll probably be fine. He'll probably give up a catch and people will freak out. And then Zont will play over him because he subs out because he's warming back up into things. And Zont will get a pick. And then the Chargers fans will freak out. So that's probably what happens.
Yeah, I think we'll see a pretty heavy rotation. But obviously would love to see him have a good moment, maybe get some opportunities, because the other two guys are covering Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So we'll see what happens there. Chris B wants to know, where do you think our run defense ranks this year?
Okay. I feel like I would have to look at the Chargers schedule real quick for this one. I don't know. 22nd, which sounds
we'll take it.
No, seriously. Yeah. Like that's a party. That's a statue building moment for the Chargers and the fan base. Yeah. Like 22nd, slightly below average. And that's great.
Yeah, I would have said 20th. Like that would have been probably my prediction, is like they're like top 20. Maybe they can shoot into the top 15 if everything goes right. But they play some good rushing teams, man. They do. Obviously they start out with this game, and then they have the Titans, and then we'll see what happens with the Vikings. But we know the Raiders are obviously going to run the ball a lot with Josh Jacobs. The Chiefs were one of the best rushing teams in the league last year with Pacheco. I think the Saints are going to run the shit out of the ball, the Broncos are going to run the shit out of the ball this year. So they play some good rushing teams. I think I'll say 20th, and that will be a big improvement. Go ahead.
No, it almost seems worse now that I'm looking at it. So Minnesota, we'll see what they do without Cook, whether that's good or bad. But yeah, Tennessee, in theory, Miami might want to try to run it more. Vegas twice. Chicago, New York just paid for a running back.
Yeah.
Detroit, we'll see if they play Gibbs. But Baltimore, like New England, has historically, doesn't matter, run all over the Chargers. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a great run defense this year, but it doesn't have to be.
Just limit the explosive plays. Like that was the biggest issue last year, was like they would give up like 4-ish yards a carry, but like 2 carries for 35, 40 yards. And like that just ruins things. So
yeah,
just limit the explosive plays this year, which I think should theoretically be better, but we'll see.
I had one. Sorry. No, that's in order. So go for the Christians first.
Christian wants to know, by what week do you think Johnston starts getting more targets than Palmer?
Ooh, jeez.
I don't think he does. I think if everybody stays healthy, I think Palmer outpaces Johnston this year in targets. I would say Palmer gets more targets and catches, but Johnston gets more yards by the end of the year.
Who gets more targets than Palmer? It's tough because like Johnston could just be the guy that they'd love to do gadgety things with, screens, shallow crossers, you name it. Nobody else can do that. So suddenly you can see boom, 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 screen, shallow crosser, boom. He's got 3 targets. Yeah, I don't think there really is a by which week. I really don't think there is, as long as everybody's healthy and Josh Palmer isn't like he looks like he, and if he looks like he did in camp, I don't see which week that is. Honestly, I really don't. And then if either Keenan or Mike gets hurt, they're going to lean into Palmer even more. They wouldn't. Yeah, of course, Johnson will get an uptick in snaps too, but they're going to lean into Palmer to be one of those guys as close as they can. So I really don't know what week it is. And that doesn't mean that Johnson's not productive. It's just Palmer has earned the right so far.
Yeah. So if you would have asked me this, heading into the training camp, I probably would have said after the bye week.
One. Yeah. Or that. Yeah.
But Palmer had a great camp, and he really kept Johnson at bay. Quentin had some ups and downs. I think the Chargers need Quentin to be good, and they need his skill set because the other three guys just can't do what he can do after the catch and vertically. So I think Quentin definitely has a role. I think he gets more yards and maybe more touchdowns than Palmer. But I think Palmer has more targets and more receptions at the end of the year than Johnson does.
Yeah, and he's got a ton of chemistry with Herbert too. ET44A asked, does Zion do better against Wilkins this time around? So from my perspective, it was more of a run game thing. I think like either 1/3 and short or a 4th and short where he got beat. But statistically, he only gave up 1 pressure that game. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this was more of a run game thing. So, I mean, I don't know. You can't do a whole lot better than 1 pressure. But I'm assuming we're talking about against the run here. Did Wilkins? Yeah, Wilkins was all over the line. Like, it's not like he stayed in one spot. It's not like a one-sided thing. He was all over.
Yeah, he plays across the line. I do feel like I remember him going up against the right side of the line more than the left, but there were definitely still some opportunities for him to go up against Matt Filer last year and Corey Linsley and all those guys. Let's see, that was week 12,
14, right? For Miami or against Miami, week 14.
Yeah, 14. Okay.
Honestly, it really just was throughout the year, just avoiding the one catastrophic play.
Yeah. So Zion was there, according to PFF, he was the highest graded run blocker against the Dolphins for what it's worth. Again, grain of salt as always. And then, like you mentioned, he just allowed the 1 pressure. So the other guard was an issue. Matt Filer was the second lowest run blocking player for the Chargers that day, only behind DeAndre Carter. And Matt Filer allowed 2 pressures, 2 sacks, or 2 hits, I mean. So that was an issue. I think we'll see a lot of Wilkins against Jamari, though. That's kind of – I think Wilkins is more on that side.
Well, that's who I would go after, respectfully. From Mackenzie Logan, long-time follower, listener. I appreciate Mackenzie so much. Yeah. Who has the best matchup against the Dolphins DBs tomorrow?
I saw this tweet that people were projecting a big day for Keenan Allen because Kader Kohou is going to play against him, and Keenan certainly could. Keenan can go off anytime. He's Herbert's number 1 target. Kader Kohou is a really good player. Like, I would say that with this trio, without Jalen Ramsey, I would say Kader Kohou is their best corner. I don't think Xavier Howard is that great of a cornerback anymore. But whoever is the third corner, that's who has the best matchup. You're talking about Eli Apple or Cam Smith, whoever the Dolphins want to play there. So in terms of their best matchup, it's whoever is the wide receiver 3 against those 2 guys.
Sure. I don't know. Who's the best matchup against the Dolphins DBs tomorrow? I mean, it was Mike last year, but I feel like that was a single play and then a big score kind of thing. I was honestly surprised looking back at the numbers that the Chargers were able to pass as much as they did. For a game you only get 23, I was surprised it was like 350 or something for Herbert. I think like 250 from his 3 guys. So, yeah, I agree with you though.
Yeah. Alex wants to know who would win in a fight, 1 tank or 1 million babies? A tank. Because the tank has weapons.
Do the babies only exist in it? Like, is it just there's nothing else in the world and it's just the babies versus the tank? Because I think after like the 100,000th baby, that other people would intervene, So, but only then. So, after the 100,000th scream, I think the people would intervene.
I would hope so. If there are other people that can intervene, I would hope they would.
So that's my perspective. At some point, someone will intervene and stop the tank, I think.
What a question. Oh my gosh, I'm dead. Sweet Jump thinks that Everett is gonna feast. What do you make of his Jared Everett's game tomorrow?
I think he's got like 18 yards and a key touchdown. But we'll see. I think he's right. I think he'll have something great in the red zone. You know, whatever you can take from last year from Joe Lombardi's offense. I think you see moments where it's like, oh yeah, Everett in the red zone, that works. So I think they'll go for it, and I think he'll be maybe not so great in terms of like your fantasy team and PPR or whatever, but I think he'll have that key touchdown, that key conversion in the red zone.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
This is so messed up. You just take one and stick it in the barrel, just like a Wile E. Coyote. All right.
That's so bad. That's so bad. But good strategy, I guess.
They're all about the team. We play as a team.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Anyway. Whew.
Alex said he has the babies in 7 games.
We'll trust the process.
Oh my gosh. Eddie Dale, how much are we trusting Alohi Gilman? I think the Chargers trust him a lot. And I don't think that he's obviously not an elite player. But the biggest issue that the Chargers have had since Adrian Phillips left, opposite of Derwin James, it's just been like the inconsistencies that Rayshawn Jenkins and Nasir Adderley would give them. And so that was what made Adrian Phillips such a good player to play alongside Derwin James, that he was just steady, he was solid, he was sound. And I think that's what they have in Alohi Gilman. I don't think we'll see him make a ton of mistakes. The one thing that Alohi gives them too is that for whatever reason, he always seems to find the football. He always seems to be around it, make plays, commit some turnovers. And this is a guy who I think can be a really solid player for them. So I don't think he's going to be like an elite player. I think you picked him as the breakout player on our Chargers podcast crossover. So I think the Chargers trust him a lot, and I think we should feel at least comfortable with what he can give the team this year.
Yeah, as long as we keep the expectations realistic for Alohi Gilman. Are we expecting elite play? Is he the next Derwin James or something? No, like please. Yes, he is a starter. Yes, he's won that job. Yes, he has looked good before, but I'm not like putting him in some tier where I think he's going to be, wow, look at this elite safety. I think he's going to be good. And that's a great place to be, like good safety play. So there's going to be some moments where you go, maybe wish you could have had somebody else. Wish you could have had some better safety play. But overall, I think we're going to get a good year of safety play from Alohi Gilman if he can stay healthy. So, and listen, last time we played the Dolphins, like the second play of the game, they dialed it up. They wanted to take advantage of the secondary. Gilman made a great play. And that almost set the tone, I think, for how I felt about the rest of the game. As soon as Gilman recognized it, ran over, pass deflection against Tyreek Hill, it's like, okay, this defense is ready to go. So not only did he recognize that, but clearly Staley, whoever pointed it out, recognized the Dolphins were doing that. So I think, with Staley, with Gilman, with Ansley, I think that, Gilman should be pretty dialed in, at least in this game.
Yeah. And again, that was one of the things we were all pretty nervous about was him being isolated in coverage, and he had a great pass breakup. Forced a fumble, which ended up being like the flukiest touchdown ever. But hey, he forced that fumble, man. So I'm excited to see Alohi. I think, again, just a nice steady presence that he can give the Chargers, I think pays dividends. Hopefully JT Woods can take a step forward this year, and we'll see how that works. So we actually got a super chat from a Dolphins fan. Appreciate Bobby Evans in the chat. Fins fan here. I'm really enjoying your analysis. Praying for a good and safe game tomorrow. Best of luck this season. Yes, definitely. Hope both sides can stay safe. There's nothing worse than week 1 injuries. Just hopefully we don't see any of that. and the teams can play a nice, clean, fun game. And best of luck to the Dolphins this season as well. I hope you're at least better than the Jets. I don't want the Jets to be well, even though I picked them. I don't want to be right there.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that was in play. Yeah, no, thank you, Bobby, very much.
I don't like Aaron Rodgers.
I see.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, well, thank you, Bobby. I think in Florida, without the taxes, you guys can afford these super chats. So I appreciate you. I hope your team stays healthy. I've always rooted for Tua, and I felt awful about how the organization kind of treated him and didn't really get anything to help him along the offensive line. Always trying to find somebody else. So I hope he has a good season, a great season, just not week 1. But regardless, hope everybody stays healthy. All the tackles for loss the Chargers will get, all the sacks the Chargers will pile up. I hope it's clean and healthy and everyone's safe.
Yeah. Shout out Bobby, though. I can't say that I would go into an opposing podcast and do a super chat. So really appreciate that. It's a really nice gesture. I hope you get some good karma coming your way because of that.
In week 2.
I met him like as a person.
All right, fine.
Athir, he asked this question earlier and I missed it, so I asked him to ask it again. He says, if the Dolphins take our deep shot early, are we willing to stay with the run game, especially if successful? I assume he's talking about taking the deep shot away, which is something we talked about. So I guess, how comfortable are you with the Chargers run game this week?
Very comfortable, I think. I feel more comfortable about the run game than the passing game. And again, Fangio, pick which one you're going for. Take away the passing game. Take away the deep ball. So honestly, I think you talked about Joshua Kelly leading the team. I think the run game should be successful. I think, if nothing else, Zion is a better run blocker and has been, and certainly he can move. Rashawn Slater, he's good at everything, but he can run block very well. Of course, I think this team, Jamari, all these guys, I just think they're better suited right now to be a good run blocking group and a rushing attack, even without some superstar big running back. But they've got enough good scheme, good running backs, and we've seen enough from the preseason where I'm feeling better about their rushing attack tomorrow than I am the passing game.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a physical game. I think this is going to be a game that the Chargers are going to want to try and come out and set the tone. We've heard all summer long about how physical and downhill this team wants to get with this run game, and I think they really try and lean on it this week. So should be a lot of fun. Like I said, I feel like Austin Eckler has a decent game. I think Joshua Kelly has a really good game, and should be a lot of fun either way. All right, that seems like a good place to stop today. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
Bolt up. I will see you guys there. I forget whether I'm in 228 now or not. We were 231, but now we bought 3 tickets, so I can go with my parents. So thank you, Dad, for buying those tickets. And should be fun. We'll go live tomorrow at 8 p.m. after Sunday Night Football. So not that it's like a matchup Chargers fans would be really interested in, but still, it's Sunday Night Football. It's week 1. You'll be watching it. Oh, shoot. Got a super chat here. Joe Alexander. Okay, rewind. Here we go. Thank you, Joe. Good. Balance out the Chargers. We can't have the Dolphins just get all the good juju. So Joe says, I'm going to be in a suite with the Chargers exec for the Cowboys game. What should I ask? Ask if they like running the ball or scoring points more. Ask them that. Oh, yeah, Chargers exec. Darn it. Sorry, I thought it was the Cowboys exec.
Well, you could still ask that. Ask them if they like running up the score as much, and that's why they wanted to hire Kellen Moore.
Yeah, as Alex says, ask the tank versus babies question.
Oh man, I appreciate Joe, man. That's a great one at the buzzer. Appreciate Alex for the fun question of the day as well. So had a ton of coverage of this game this week. Started off with the interview with Chargers offensive tackle Trey Pipkins. We had injury analysis from our guy Jameson. We had obviously bowl breakdowns from Alex. Had Chargers analytics with Arjun, our episode. We also had a college football analysis with Alex Katzen. So please go check all of that out if you haven't yet. Make sure like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Use our prize picks link tomorrow. Make yourself some money and help support the show. Really appreciate that and their support all season long for sure. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Appreciate it. As Tyler said, we'll see you tomorrow at 8. As always, bolt up.